It was June 27th, 2017, a little after 11 p.m., when dispatch sent me to the reservoir off Route 31. A couple had called it in. They were lost, saw hazard lights down by the water, and couldn't find the driver. Possibly abandoned, possibly medical, is what the note said. If you don't know that place, it's just a short access road that ends at a concrete ramp. At night, the water eats sound and throws it back. I rolled down with my amber bar off and parked behind a silver sedan sitting nose down toward the ramp. The hazards were ticking steady. Tick, tick. It was louder than it should have been, like the concrete, and the water were metronomes. The driver door was pulled to but not latched. Gear in neutral. Parking brake down. Key still turned to ACC. In the cup holder, a stainless travel mug that felt warm when I palmed it. On the driver's seat, a phone face down with the lock screen still lit. Glove box had a wallet with cash and the registration. That combination always makes your stomach do a small wrong thing. It's all there, just not the person. I walked the front of the car with my light. The ramp dust holds prints like plaster after a light rain, but there were no footprints leading forward, just two clean arcs where the front tires had rolled, like someone had nudged the car those last inches and let it stop itself. On the right front sidewall, a chalk slash at an angle. I see those in shops during a rotation, but I don't see them at midnight on a ramp. The couple who called stood back near their own car, arms crossed, not wanting to be part of it anymore. I told them thanks, that deputies were en route. Then I did what I always do before law shows up. Quick safety pass. Underbody intact. No drag marks. No flood line on the interior carpet. I eased the driver door and it moved silent. Something had been jammed in the gap to keep it from clicking. When I checked the ground, a slim wood shim sat under the door edge, the kind cabinet guys use. I pocketed it for the deputy. County pulled in dark and lit up the scene only when he was behind me. He asked us to stand to the side. He put on gloves and did the slow circle. From the door pocket, he tweezed a small folded triangle of cash like it was a gum wrapper. "You see these anywhere?" he asked. I told him I see them under motel doors sometimes, when somebody wants a door to open without names attached. He didn't say anything to that. We decided not to start the car. I ran the winch line and took up slack. As the sedan came back up the slope a few inches, something green flicked and dropped from the front plate bracket. The deputy bent, pinched it, and held up a short length of fishing line that had been looped and broken. He and I looked at each other because it meant someone had tied something where there's nothing to tie. He called the plate in again and asked dispatch for tower hits. They can't give you much at my level, but he said later the plate pinged a cell site up the service road 3 times between 10 and 11 p.m. 5 minutes each, like a route check. If you pull an old county map, there used to be a gravel road along that bank that's been closed for years. People still try to find it. While we waited for the investigator, I kept doing small checks, because that's how you keep your hands busy. The trunk lid had a faint half-moon swipe in dust, the kind a finger makes when someone starts to lift and changes their mind. The hazard relay kept time for us. Tick, tick. The couple asked if we thought someone went into the water. The deputy looked at the arcs in front of the tires and said we'd grid at first light, but there were no heel gouges, no slide, nothing that looked like a human misstep. We pulled the car up far enough to be safe without changing the gear or the key position. I chalked the rear tires and took photos for the release. The investigator arrived and took the same photo slower. He bagged the shim. He asked me to show him exactly how far the door had been pulled. He wrote down, neutral, ACC, hazards. He asked if I'd touched the phone. I had not. He held his own up to the windshield to see if the other screen would wake and show a notification we could tell him about. It didn't. When county cleared me, I loaded the sedan with the front wheels raised and the battery still feeding those hazards. The couple left after giving statements. They didn't want to drive past the ramp in their mirror, and I understood that. 2 days later, a detective called my cell and asked me to go through it again like I hadn't told anyone yet. He cared about the chalk mark, the shim, the broken line, the unfinished trunk swipe. I could tell he wanted me to remember a second car, a plate, a color. I didn't have it. He thanked me anyway and said the owners hadn't been located. I went back once on my own time in daylight because sometimes you need the sun to make a place ordinary again. Kids were throwing rocks. An old man was casting for bass. The ramp looked like any ramp. You would never know a car sat there beating its little heart for nobody. There isn't a lesson. We didn't find footprints to the water. We didn't find a note. We found a warm mug, a phone that never got picked up, 2 clean arcs on concrete, a wedge that kept a door quiet, and a piece of line that had no business under a plate. The thing that stayed is the sound. When I can't sleep, I still hear it the way the reservoir made it sound. Hazards counting seconds no one used. Tick, tick. It was September 8th, 2008, the Tuesday after Labor Day. Dry Cove was almost empty, the kind of quiet where you hear your own boots. At 6:25 a.m., I walked down to Site 12 on my morning loop. That site sits on a flat rock shelf right over the water. The picture was ordinary and wrong at the same time. A kettle sat on the grate, still warm when I touched it. 2 headlamps on the picnic table, one aimed at the tent, one at the bear box. Their boots were side by side at the flap, toes pointed out. The tent zipper was forward and down with the slider on the outside. Inside, 2 bags lay unrolled and fluffed. A folded jacket lay across one of them like someone meant to come back to it. I look for time first. A cheap travel alarm hung from the tent loop. 3:42 a.m. The beeper had been silenced. Overnight, we'd had a light rain that left a thin film on the clay and then cleared. The ash under the grate had that damp skin you can write on with a stick. It was the kind of morning that remembers feet. 2 sets of prints told their route. Tent to table, table to tent. Then both sets toward the lip of the rock shelf. There, the prints narrowed until they became one line. At the edge, they stopped clean. Not smeared, not washed, just ended half a step into nothing. If you've ever seen a footprint stop without a reason, you don't forget it. Above the approach path, at chest height, a loop of paracord hung over a branch in a slip configuration you can pull and clear in one motion. The bark under it was newly polished by a shoulder. One shallow knee dent sat in the clay below it, and then nothing. I've written minor evidence of staging in reports. It always sounds calmer than it feels. I radioed the district and taped the site. The search captain came with 2 handlers. The dogs took air and gave me that look that says, "We'll try." We worked the shelf, the willow fringe, and the roots where the bank chews back on itself. No fabric, no blood, no hair. In the back corner of the bear box, where you have to reach blind, I heard a small tick. Tick. A $2 kitchen timer sat there, counting 2 seconds like a metronome. If you stood in the tent and listened, it matched your breathing. I clicked it off and felt foolish for the relief. We checked the entrance log. They'd paid cash at 5:18 p.m. Plate noted wrong by 1 digit. No checkout. The host remembered a red cap and a comment from the woman. "We're only here for the stars." The fee-board trail cam caught them as blurs at 5:23 and nothing after dark. Maintenance hadn't moved the slippery rock shelf sign, but someone had taped it higher up the road. The tape was still tacky under my nail. I walked the far bank with binoculars because you do the useless things too. The reservoir was glass. Boats drew small V-wakes and left them. On the shelf edge at knee height, I saw a faint, chalk-pale smear across the grain of the wood railing. The kind dry clay leaves when a hand checks the same spot in the night. I pressed it with my thumb and felt nothing, but it looked like memory. By 10, we'd run the drones, and a grid we could justify. Nothing. At noon, the first family member arrived. A father who asked accurate questions. Where the prints narrowed, whether the zipper slider was inside or out, how far the kitchen timer could be heard from the tent. I answered like a manual. He looked past me at the water like it had the next question. We left chem lights on the path at dusk in case a recovery was called. It wasn't. I took the travel alarm down and bagged it because I refused to let it hang there and tell time to no one. I wrote my report clean. 2 adults, Site 12. Last known time approximately 3:42. Evidence collected. Timer from bear box. Paracord loop removed. I did not write the sentence that wanted to go in. They disappeared between the kettle and dawn. People ask what I think happened. I don't give theories. I give the parts you can put your hand on. A warm kettle, a zipper parked outside, 2 sets of prints that became 1, a slip loop overhead, a timer ticking 2 seconds like a breath. The rest is the shelf and the water, and the way a campground can hold a silence so well that it starts to feel like an answer. If you camp at Dry Cove in September and you hear something at night matching your breath 2 seconds in, 2 seconds out, it's probably a forgotten timer in a metal box. And if it isn't, it's just the worst kind of courtesy. Something keeping time for you so you won't notice how long a lake can keep anything else. It was October 14th, 2013, 12 minutes past midnight, when dispatch sent me to mile 47 on State Route 221. Disabled pickup, hazard lights active, no driver visible, was all I got. That stretch is a long straight with a shallow shoulder and a cut bank on the right. You can smell the hot dust there, even in cold months. I came in dark and let the cruiser roll to a stop 50 feet back. The pickup older Ford, white cap on the bed sat tight to the fog line. The hazards were blinking in a pattern I don't see often. 3 quick, a pause, 2 long, another pause, then repeat. Most drivers don't know how to program that because you can't. It was the relay itself clicking. Loud. The way sound gets when it bounces off a dirt wall. Driver door was pulled to but not fully latched. Engine still warm. Radio on scan, ticking through dead channels. On the seat, a folded map with a pencil circle around an old service road that used to parallel the highway decades ago. In the console, a receipt from a tire shop at 2241. Then nothing. The seatbelt at the buckle had a clean diagonal cut, not torn, not frayed. I've seen that cut before. People do it when they're stuck after a wreck, or when they don't want the belt to lock again. There was no wreck. I glove up. I don't touch more than I have to. Under the driver door, ribbed into the rubber sill, a dime sat on edge in the strike. If you wedge a coin there, the latch can close quiet without that metal-on-metal click. Someone wanted the door pulled without noise. I swept the shoulder with the flashlight. The sand holds a story if it has one. No dragging grooves, no heel gouges toward the bank, no slide toward the lane. By the front bumper, the dust drew a soft C shape like something on a short leash had been pulled and let go. The hood had finger swipes in a shallow arc at the right hinge, clean through the grit. That's a thinking about opening it mark. You touch and decide not to. I cleared the bed. Under the cap, ratchet straps and a short gray cargo band with a frayed end, the kind they use at depots to mark freight. No obvious tool bag, no gun case, no cooler. In the map's back pocket lay a small laminated placard from a county forestry gate. The gate road it named hasn't been open for years. Someone had kept the placard anyway. The tow operator rolled up and killed his beacon before he was fully off the lane. He didn't like the smell either. 47? He said. I nodded. He said, almost like a joke, if you get the 3 quick too long, don't be a hero. He's been on enough of these that folklore starts to sound like a procedure. We made the easy choice. Don't start the truck, don't change a setting. I chalked tires. He ran a line to the rear frame. When he took up slack, the truck came back an inch and a sliver of clear plastic slipped from the front plate bracket and fell. I picked it up with a pen. It was the tag end off a zip tie, cut clean. That told me there had been something fixed under their wire, line, maybe a marker, and it had been removed recently. I radioed for tower hits on the registered phone. The duty sergeant said the handset pinged a sector up by the old service spur 3 times between 10 and 11 p.m. 5 minutes each time, then went quiet. He didn't like that either. People who are lost don't drive a dead road 3 times to make sure it's still dead. I kept collecting small, wrong things. In the door pocket, a gas station towel with a narrow soot line across the fold, as if someone had drawn it along a pipe. On the rear bumper cap, a half-moon dust swipe from a fingertip starting to lift and then stopping. On the fog line itself, a small abrasion that didn't belong to any recent skid. The relay in the dash kept hammering time for us 3. Pause. 2. Pause. Louder than the crickets and the line haul trucks a mile away. The couple who had called it in pulled back alongside to give a statement. They'd passed at 11:56, saw the pattern, looped at the next exit, came back, and didn't see anyone walking. They asked me if I thought someone had gone up the bank. I shined my light along the cut. The weeds were undisturbed, the dust on the rock face unbroken. You can tell when a knee or a boot has touched shale. Nothing. We pulled the truck backward to a safer spot without altering the key or the gear. The tow op set his blocks and shut down his winch. The hazard relay kept clicking to itself with the battery that should have been tired and wasn't yet. I photographed the coin in situ, the cut belt, the map with its penciled circle, the zip tie tail, the cargo band. The investigator arrived and took the same photos slower. He bagged my dime in the plastic. He asked me to write door pulled without latch, coin present, belt cut at buckle. Map shows decommissioned service road. 2 days later, a detective called to rewalk it from my end. He wanted the exact times. The tire receipt at 22:41, the couple at 23:56, my arrival at 0:12, the tow arrival at 0:26. He asked about the pattern 3 quick, 2 long, and whether I had ever seen it on that relay at that mile. I said I had, twice, and both times the story didn't finish. People like a lesson. This kind of report doesn't give one. We didn't find blood. We didn't find a note. We found a cut belt and a quiet door, a dime standing on edge, a map pointing to a road that isn't a road, a zip-tie tail that meant something had been fastened where nothing should be, and a hazard relay doing a little code that nobody told it to do. Sometimes I drive 221 home after shift change. Mile 47 is nothing in daylight, just grass that needs cutting and a number on a post. At night, I can hear that relay again, the way the bank made it sound, sharper than it should be, counting seconds that belonged to somebody who didn't use them. 3. Pause. 2. Pause. And then whatever was supposed to happen next never does.